All you do. Thank you. And we're going to see, of course, much more on the main stage in a little while. But meanwhile, coming up, an interview with Metallica's Lars Ulrich. That and more as we count down to today's big lineup. You heard it. Rihanna, Ellie Goulding, Kendrick Lamar all taking the stage. We'll be right back live from the Global Citizen Festival in New York City.
New York City? I thought they were in North Carolina.
That they have suffered under 8 years of President Obama's economic policies. Despite this, a new NBC Wall Street Journal Telemundo poll shows Hillary Clinton.
Come on, America! Why are you going with? Oh my God!
At most 50 points. So is it too late for Trump to make inroads with this voting group?
Okay. So apparently that 30 minutes went by pretty fast. Okay, so I'm still here talking about the Kenneth Lamont Scott shooting. Okay. So he was being psychologically terrorized. He was being stalked by some of his past enemies. He's had some issues. He's had some trouble, but living in the ghetto where a lot of desperate people are, people that want to drive by you, pointing a gun at you, that means if they're pointing a gun at you, right, he has a right to stand his ground. He's got a right to vigilante laws. He's got a right to, self-defense. Somebody has a gun pointed at him, he has a right to shoot that person. So it wouldn't be that big of a stretch to think that maybe he was carrying a gun. I believe all the family. They didn't know that he had one, so perhaps he was keeping it on the down low. It was he had an ankle holster supposedly. That's just hearsay. I've never actually seen the picture or anything of it. But and it was a small gun, that's wonderful. Nice little small gun that maybe a cop could just hide in his pocket or in one of his side pockets. So I wouldn't hate the man for having a gun. And if it's in his hand, I think it's a gray area. It's a gray area, because if it was holstered, then there's no arguments from me. He is innocent. If it's not holstered, then there's no arguments from me. If it's pointed, if it's not holstered and it's pointed. But a lot of people don't have, it's not holstered. I've seen a bunch of white guys wear AK-47s around their chest and, on their back and going into a McDonald's or a Burger King or something, right? And is that holstered? It's on their back. So it's like, is that proper way to hold it? Cops have the gun holstered, so if they have their hand on it, right, they're ready to pull. But it's when they pull. That's when I feel like that's the code duello. For the code duello, you line up, right? You do 10 paces each, and there's different ways. You can turn around and shoot, or one can shoot, the other one could shoot, and then you just, let the other person shoot at you. But you have Keith Lamont Scott. He was being stalked by his past enemies, so he was having to look over his shoulder for criminal citizens and criminal cops. He has two gangs of people that he's got to look out for. He's got to look out for the people, and he's got to look out for the cops. It'd be nice to know that the cops are actually out there for you, but they weren't. They weren't. They were going for another guy. They had a warrant for another guy, and instead of going for that guy, they come across the guy by himself in an SUV. Let's victimize them. He's easy prey for the predators. So a witness at the scene said that one cop directed the other cop to go get the gun, and Kenneth Lamont Scott's body is rolled over by the cops. Kenneth Lamont Scott's body is stripped to his boxers. In that first photo that I showed you, Scott's body is blurred in the last video. Scott's body is blurred in the video, but his bare legs, his butt, and his upper body appear to be exposed. And not appear, it was exposed. What's the point of that? That's embarrassing and that's humiliating. And then the cops didn't perform life-saving measures. They were just poking around on his body, stripping him, taking his clothes off. What are they doing? They want to see his junk? They want to see his private parts. They want to see what? His butt crack or something? What are they doing? You're not giving him CPR. You're not trying to save the man's life. The threat has been subdued, and yet you're not trying to save him. The ambulance took about 20 minutes to get there. I didn't see any CPR. They said that there was CPR. That's what they had reported. So they didn't try to save his life. They're stripping his pants off of him. The lives of the cops are unraveling slowly but surely. We didn't learn why or how or in what manner the cops went after Keith Lamont Scott. We didn't see that part. We didn't see the initial confrontation. We didn't see him supposedly getting out of the vehicle and coming back in the vehicle, which Kerr Putney said that he didn't have a gun the first time he exited the vehicle. So what was the probable cause for even messing with this guy? The only thing they mentioned was that he had a gun, but what was the point? Did you see a drug deal? Was he victimizing somebody? Was he kicking somebody? Did he rob someone's purse? Did he just jump somebody and then kill the guy like the cops did? Did he do that? Did he do any of that? So we don't know why or know the beginnings of this altercation. We don't know why Keith Lamont Scott even triggered the radar. What triggered them? The police are there to serve a warrant on somebody else. They weren't there for him. John Doe PBQ, whoever this John Doe is still at large. But the CMPD are too busy covering up this murder to worry about doing their damn job. So that John Doe PBQ is still running around doing whatever he wants to do. There's no doubt that Brentley Vincent and his 3 white oppressor buddies, including the undercover plainclothes plain SUV car, red shirt, white-skinned, unnamed and unidentified stormtrooper Gestapo Nazi buddy, who looked like he may have given Brentley Vincent a gun to plant, probably black latex gloves, but maybe a gun, would have just did their damn jobs. Then they wouldn't have murdered an innocent man. Go after that John Doe PBQ. Who's that PBQ guy? Where's PBQ at? PBQ is nowhere to be found. We're not even talking about him. It was just like when that Betty Joe, whatever her name is, in Tulsa. Betty Joe, and then we're going after a different, incident. The man has his car broke down in the middle of the road. He needs to die. So, Mark Dice, Mark Dice is a piece of shit, okay? God damn it, I can't tell who I hate more, Tommy Rice, or Tommy Lawlin, or Mark Dice. Or YouTube's free speech police. Mark Dice, Mark Dick, Mark Dick is a piece of shit and a cunt. But he acts like everybody's so stupid. That's how he talks. I can't believe, It's like Mark Dice can't understand that the police are human beings, and just being human, to err is human. So human beings make mistakes. And then when you give people power, absolute power corrupts absolutely, that actually gives them more of an incentive to, commit a crime. So just because they're near about it, because they have nicer clothes, because they're more organized, is that why people trust the police so much? I don't know what it is. I think it's his whiteness. He's a privileged white guy, so he just assumes that it's okay for some of the rabble to be shot in the name of law and order. Not really law, but in the name of order. So anyways, you have 4 undercovers on the scene. They're all wearing dress shirts underneath their police vest. Dylan Roof, he wore a police vest in his personal pictures. He killed those black folks in a church in South Carolina, 9 of them, I think. So regular people can have bulletproof vest on. So even if they are dressed nice and dressed neat, have a bulletproof vest on, does that make them a cop? Just because they're dressed nice? Cops need to be clearly visible. You want a monopoly on violence? Then you need to be clearly visible. You need to be, have bright blue wear. You need to not be doing these undercover cars. You need to have the sirens on top, be painted police on the side, so that way we know exactly who you are. You come up on the scene and we're supposed to take your word for it? No, that's not good enough for me. Because anybody could be dressed like a cop. Anybody could say that they're a police officer. Mitt Romney, for one. He went around terrorizing people, as college roommates said. So, only cops can get away with jumping a man, then murdering him, and then walking away from it like it didn't matter, to go home and make a sandwich. Keith Lamont Scott was being jumped by a bunch of thugs. Plain clothes, plain card thugs. Out of nowhere. There's a threat. That's a threat that no street criminal or mafia could ever implement. Only the police could do something like that. Only the police could get away with jumping a person, murdering that person, and then walking away from it and getting the entire state, the entire white-collar mafia to defend that murder, to cover up that crime. Only the cops could get away with something like that. Keith Lamont Scott was just a peaceful and quiet family man, a loyal husband of 20 years, a father of 7. He walks with a cane. Oh, man, there's a threat. He walks with a cane. Watch out. There's a man, an older man with a cane with traumatic brain injury. He's a disabled man with a cane. That's all. Everybody slow down. Watch out. Waiting at a school bus stop, reading the Quran, waiting for his son. He's a good man. He's a stellar, superb man. Kurt Putney said that the videotapes, the 2 out of the total 8 videotapes, or maybe 9, but at least 8 videotapes should exist if every one of the police dash cams had been running and every one of the body cams of the cops had been running. There should be 8 videotapes. but they're only talking about two. One dash cam, probably that SUV that came up, and then one body cam. One body cam, one dash cam. There's 3, 4 cars, there's 5 cops, but only one of each. And then they said, Kurt Putney said that the videotapes, the 2 out of the total 8 videotapes which should exist, doesn't show Keith Lamont Scott pointing a gun at the cops. So he doesn't actually point the gun at the cops. Perhaps he's got the gun by his side. So what are the laws? Are the laws specific when it comes to open carry? We got the right to bear arms. We got the Second Amendment. But I feel like it should be holstered, personally. So that's still a gray area, though. When they're pointing the gun at you, there's imminent danger. The cops had their guns pointed at him. And if he didn't know that they were the police, he's got a right to defend himself. He's got a human right to self-preservation, to get the hell out of Dodge, to save his own skin. So they said that the videotapes, the 2 other ones that we haven't seen, it doesn't show him actually pointing the gun, and it doesn't show even Keith Lamont Scott's hands. We don't even see his hands in these 2 tapes. The SUV pulling up, we don't see his hands, and then the body camera, we don't see his hands. Well, this is convenient, right? The other 4 cops forgot to turn on their body cameras. The other, the body cam doesn't. Now, how did the body cam not show this? Even at the body cam when they're looking at the body afterwards. Are they just showing the incident and then they're cutting out the rest of it? No, don't cut out the rest of it. Let's see the entire incident. Quit playing games. Quit playing games. This is the 4th night, going to be the 5th night, that there are protests and unrest in Charlotte. Why would you keep that a secret? You guys are dishonest. You guys are covering stuff up. You're not being forthcoming with information, and you're not being transparent. You're not telling us what we need to know. You act like you guys can only know all the information. You act like only you all can know what's going on, and we're just supposed to trust you. Well, we don't trust you. That means the relationship is severed. If there's no trust, there's nothing. Trust is everything. So there's no trusting the police in Charlotte, Mecklenburg. Revolution is needed. The black folks on the streets and the whites and the browns and everybody that's on the streets in Charlotte, North Carolina is doing right. Every one of those cops need to be fired. Get rid of every single one of them. And then the people on the streets, they should have citizen-run councils. Put them in the positions of authority. Put the handcuffs on that Vincent guy. What's that Vincent's name? Chetley? Chancey? What's his name? Brentley. So Brentley Vincent needs to be put in handcuffs. He needs to be put in jail. And let's put him through the criminal justice system. He killed a man. Man's dead. You go to jail. You go to jail and you bond out. You give us a bunch of money so that we know that you'll come back. Brentley Vincent could be in Mexico right now. Does anybody know what Brentley Vincent is? He's got a paid vacation, so he could be taking taxpayer check and, going to the Canary Islands, like that one racist in Germany. So, that's the only reason that it makes sense. The only reason that it makes sense. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't a gun. I'm saying I don't know. There's no evidence that there was a gun, except for their lies. There's no evidence that he had a gun. So the object in his left hand is still in question. I don't know what was in his left hand. A book? Something to do with his traumatic brain injury? A black piece of licorice? So I'm not saying that there wasn't a gun, but it's the secrecy, the lying, the holding back of the 2 videotapes, when there should be 8 videotapes. So they didn't even turn their body cameras on. They're such good veterans and good people, but they don't record themselves. Why? So that way they can get away with their crimes. That's why. That's the only reason why. You wouldn't turn on the body camera. You should have that on the entire time that you're on the force. You put on the vest, right? You put on the bulletproof vest. And when you put on the bulletproof vest, that body camera should be right there. Push the button. You don't know how to push a button, but you know how to pull trigger. So, and then when they release that photo, they won't show the videotapes. There's all the secrecy, the lying, the holding back. But then they release that one photo with Keith Lamont Scott's pants pulled down. A humiliating, embarrassing photo. And then Keith Lamont Scott's family wants the police to release the tapes. They want them to. Release the tapes. The family wants them to. So you're not protecting the family. You're not protecting anybody. The only reason that you're not doing it is that makes any sense is because you're covering up a crime because our entire system and our culture is sick. And you're defending your crimes. And what do white people, Mark Dice, see, this is to you, Mark, what do you get out of your whiteness? I can't relate to Mark Dice at all. I can't relate to him. There's whites who get killed by the police. There's whites in poverty. There's whites who commit suicide, 22 suicides every day. And if they're not flat out shot and killed in the war. And then there's homeless whites. And how many well-off whites just walk past the homeless whites and don't give a flying fuck? How come whites don't give a fuck about other people? What the fuck is wrong with white people? This is a life. A life was taken off this planet. Nelson Mandela, he says that America just doesn't care about human beings. He's right. There's something sick about white people. It's like they've lost their soul. They've lost their humanity. They're a bunch of psychopaths who can't empathize. You know, they're not outraged by Keith Lamont Scott being killed, but they're outraged by Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem. So wait, hold on. One's dead and the other guy kneels, and you're mad about that? So I don't know what the reason is. Maybe homophobia, maybe tribalism, maybe capitalism, maybe all three. The bravery of Rakeyia and Lyric Scott, Keith Lamont Scott's wife and daughter, is why we know what's even going on. Why there's protests on the street. If I was gunned down, I guarantee you that no crocodile tear would be shed for me. And I think that's ridiculous. In fact, it makes you think that we need a White Panther group or a Rainbow Coalition. And I need a better support system, clearly. Right? But that's, you know, how brave? How brave were they? For the daughter to confront all those police officers, going around talking all the smack in the world, saying that she's going to set it off. And then the wife who runs up to him, and then she says, I'm not going to go up to you, but I'm going to record you. She ran up to him, right? She tried to stay back, but after they shot, she was like, and then she's like, he better not die. He better not die, right? So she was right there on the scene. Thank God for that. Thank God for that. If anything, there might be some justice for this Keith Lamont Scott. There might be some justice. His legacy will definitely be remembered. It almost makes you feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, why did he do that? You know? To sacrifice himself for the greater good, so maybe we can actually change something for once in our lives? So I don't understand why it takes the bravery of black folks to point out all the ills of society. It's like white folks would rather remain ignorant or keep their heads in the sand or allow a few of the poor rabble to be murdered in the name of order, not law, because there is no rule of law. Rule of law means we all have to listen to the law. We can't go murder and rape and steal and use violence against people. They want to say he's got an assault charge. Well, do cops not assault people day in and day out? That's what they do. They're a bunch of thugs. The cops are the biggest anarchists out here. There's no accountability for them. They do whatever they want to do. And if we can't even agree that murder is wrong, then there is no basis for our civilization. Hillary Clinton is supposed to make a campaign stop there in Charlotte tomorrow, and that's a good move for her. Jill Stein and Gary Johnson should get out there, too. They're against the militarization of the police and the drug war, and they want prison industrial complex to be reformed or revamped or, wiped out. So they want to change a lot of the stuff, and this is important stuff. Bill Maher is right. There's lots of dumb people in this country. It's like stupidity is a virtue, and everybody acts like they know what's going on. Hey, you know what's going on? Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, me too. Bullshit. You don't know what's going on. You don't know at all. The renminbi is going to be added to the SDRs for the IMF basket of currencies to make sure the dollar doesn't go down. If it does, we got all this, reserve currency. That's going to happen on October 1st. You know about that? What about happening in Pandoro? Yeah, you're going to give Gary Johnson all the bullshit for not knowing Aleppo, but you don't know what's going on in Pandoro, in Bolivia, with the miners and the strikes. And they killed the the deputy minister of information, or the deputy minister of the interior. Donald Trump, he says that he's going to go to Charlotte, North Carolina, too. And he's already suggested that we have a nationwide stop and frisk program, which was spectacularly unsuccessful in New York City. It's unconstitutional as well as pointless. I hope Donald Trump goes to Charlotte. I hope he does. If only George Washington had a body camera, if only the Mayflower and DeSoto had a dash camera, if only the Santa Maria Pinta and Nina had a dash camera. These damn white conservatives, look at how they do things in Germany. They don't shoot to kill. They try to de-escalate the situation because they respect life. But that's not the case here in the divided snakes of embarrassment. It's time for the millennials to change this country. The baby boomers have sold us out. They've sold us out. They don't care about us. They had inflated rates, so they got to have artificially inflated rates, so they got to do well in society. And just like Tunisia, there's a lot of educated, unemployed people here in the United States, or educated people flipping burgers. The promise of America is better than this. It's better than this. Homeless people on the streets, people in war, 15 years global war, 22 suicides every day, people being raped in prison, and it's like every once in a while, one of us might slip off. Nobody cares. Nobody bats an eye. And that's horrible. That's horrible. We need to have a better social safety net. We need to start caring about each other. If survival of the fittest, no, it's not survival of the fittest. It's cooperation and mutual aid. That's how people succeed. That's how people survive. You want all the power, you want all the money, and you're going to just keep on taking all the power and all the money until what? You have a monopoly and you've bankrupted everybody? That's how monopoly works. So that's what these capitalists want. Show me a capitalist and I'll show you a bloodsucker. Homophobia, capitalism. What was the other thing I mentioned? There's another thing. Homophobia, capitalism, and tribalism. So, yeah, America, we could do better. So, Jill Stein, 2016. Peace out.